Ladies and gentlemen, we have to resume our program. Time is against us, and we are looking forward to the commissions. We wouldn't like to lose time, and we have short time for the commissions. As we start our program for today, may I request all ladies and gentlemen to be settled. We are going to start with the national anthem, which we all have to respect. The national anthem will be led by the media on our right side. May I request everybody to rise so that we'll listen to the national anthem. Can we please be quiet for the national anthem? Thank you. We may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to continue with our proceedings, sizawucela uDeputy Executive Mayor wase Buffalo City Metro asamkele and welcome us so that we can relax afase izinja zakhe sizokwazi usebenza apha eBuffalo City. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, Dr. Hugo, the Premier of the Eastern Cape, Honorable Oscar Mabuyane, and all MECs present here today, the members of the legislature, officials from all spheres of government responsible for gender-based violence and femicide work, our religious leaders and traditional leaders who are present here today, our civil society and the NGO sectors, members of the media, invited guests and colleagues. Maribongwe. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you all to our Eastern Cape region in our Buffalo City Metro in East London for this Provincial Gender-Based Violence Summit. We hold this gathering this year under the theme Accountability, Acceleration, and Amplification Now. Without doubt, this theme is straightforward, and it is targeted towards doing programmatic work that is encapsulated in critical practice and policy accuracy to defeat the scourges of gender-based violence in our times. The truth of the matter is that We live in extremely violent society where men are so angry and they've totally disregarded human life. Just last week, Honorable Premier, you attended a tragic case in Ward 31 here in Buffalo City where a 6-year-old boy was killed by his own father. In other parts of the country, we witnessed the gang rape of artists, as we saw in Krugersdorp, the rape and murder of sex workers in central Johannesburg a few weeks ago. Yesterday, we heard of a 4-year-old girl who was cut into pieces at Benoni, and some of her body parts are still not yet found. The situation in our country is getting more and more complicated, and we seem to be getting overwhelmed by the intensity of this crisis. But we all know the overwhelming majority of sexual crimes against women and children are not reported. There are many other tragic incidents that do not make it to the police station. These incidents occur in our schools, in our workplaces, in farms, in remote villages, and indeed in taverns, including churches. People use traditions and culture to hide the violent crimes committed by people whom they perceive as breadwinners, bosses, parents, uncle, and coaches. In other words, one of the stumbling blocks in the fight against abuse of women and children is the power control. The power control narrative and influence victims on what they should do and say, even if someone is not trained on how to handle a rape incident. Furthermore, we also see many cases disappearing in the hands of police. Our institutions that are tasked with the responsibility to carry out prosecutions are grossly inefficient. We have seen many cases where evidence and rape samples go missing. In some instances, we find women getting victimized again during court proceedings in rape trials. In other words, the system of patriarchalization is deeply entrenched in the state, and it is also shapes the pattern and behavior of our communities. But as we open this summit to deliberate on this question, we must remember to be resilient in crafting our own systematic interventions to deal with this crisis. Patriarchy finds joy when we're angry and impatient. When we're angry and impatient with summits and dialogue, we must be careful of these tendencies. Talking and engaging is never a waste of time. Patriarchy must never be allowed to dictate to us on what we should be, our strategy and tactics to defeat the enemy. We must engage with one another as much as possible, because the abuse keeps changing its strategy of the oppression. The abusers are becoming more and more intelligent, and they are taking advantage of the weaknesses in our government to deal with them. We therefore have an obligation as this woman to come together with all relevant stakeholders to find new solutions in partnership on how we are going to remain activated to defeat this complex enemy. Moving forward, Honorable Premier, we must always remember that our main transformation target as government on this question is ultimately achieve an equal society that has empowered women who are able to be independent, who are able to shape their destiny in their own voices. Our part of social transformation and renewal, therefore, is to create an unsexist that is free from racism, inequality, unemployment, and generational poverty. We have an obligation as these three spheres of government to work towards this objective and utilize the district development model to reopen our hubs of mutual interest to build inclusive economies that will put women at the center of development. We want to see government departments, municipalities, SMME, and big capital firms transforming for better by being led by women, and them by having policies and stream of empowerment that will show indicators on how they will be uplifting women throughout training, opportunities, and equitable appointments. This is how we're going to rebuild peaceful communities that are free of abuse and patriarchy. With those few words, I wish to welcome you all to our metro, and may we have a successful provincial summit. Inkosi.
Malibongwe. Masimbulele uKouncillor Faku ngosamkela. Thank you very much, Councillor Faku. Indeed, we are gathered here to look for new solutions. As the province, we have developed our own provincial gender-based violence and femicide implementation plan. But today we are here to take stock and see how we have implemented, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. Hence, we are coming together as government, civil society, and private sector to look for new solutions. We need partnerships, but most of all, we need political accountability. In order to win in these interventions, we need political buy-in, we need political leadership. We know that Eastern Cape was chosen by President for the pilot of rapid response, and we've seen how our Premier welcomed the challenge of the pilot together with the MECs, especially the MEC for Social Development, who was asked to lead the pilot process. We are now going to call our Honorable Premier to set the scene.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Thank you very much, Program Director, Dr. Hugo. Greetings to the Deputy Executive Mayor of Buffalo City, Councillor Faku, members of the Executive Council. I think almost the entire EXCO is here. The MPLs and MPs, if there are any, they should be here, representing their constituencies. The House of Traditional Leaders, I've seen the Deputy Chair coming in, uNkosi uGwazinamba, nenkosi zonke ke ezikhoyo phakathi kwethu, abefundisi bakwalizwi, the Commission for Gender Equality, Masimanyane Women and Rights International, Dr. Foster, I've seen you, the civil society that is present here, representatives of SABS and NPA, ndalibala abantu ababaluleke kakhulu oMayor, all executive mayors. You are not represented by Faku, you are represented here by yourselves. We've taken a decision that no mayor is better than any mayor, executive or what, and we should all be on the ground. And these things are happening in your own local municipalities. Good morning to you all, colleagues. We are convened here today for 2 days to discuss the perennial issue of gender-based violence and femicide in our province, which was correctly described as a second pandemic by President of our country. Program Director, we must all understand that gender-based violence and femicide falls within our provincial medium-term strategic framework priorities, namely building social cohesion and safe communities. Women and children are the most affected by this scourge, and we meet here to alleviate their plight. Gender-based violence and femicide is a societal problem. It needs a collective effort men and women, young and old, black or white, as it knows no boundaries, no status, class, or creed. The theme for this summit is accountability, acceleration, and amplification now. Therefore, we are expecting to get reports that will indicate whether we are moving forward or backward in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. We also expect to hear about successes and challenges in our fight against this pandemic in implementation of our provincial strategy. I'm particularly interested to hear about whether we have improvements in reported cases, as that would indicate a positive indicator that women are not suffering in silence. I'm interested to hear whether reported cases reach our courts for successful conviction of perpetrators. Yes, we know since the launch here in our province, led by our president, we've seen a lot of cases being reported. Now we know what is happening in Bizana. Now we know what is happening in Mozahil, particularly in Lusikisiki, as our people are free to come forward and report all these sad and bad experiences they are going through. There are various forms of gender-based violence in our society that are equally brutal. But murder and sexual crimes are the leading forms of gender-based violence and femicide cases in our province. The numbers I have at my disposal indicate that over the last quarter, the province experienced a 17% increase in murder cases, over 180 more cases than the previous quarter. It is difficult to tell how many of those are gender-based violence or femicide cases, but we can say with certainty that a sizable number of those murder cases are gender-based violence-related cases. Although sexual offenses have decreased by 12.6% in the province, Lusikisiki remains the heartland for all forms of sexual crimes in the province, sitting at number 1 in the province and number 3 nationally. Mbizana is at number 2 in the Eastern Cape and 18 nationally, followed by East London, where we are now, at number 3 in the province and number 21 nationally. Considering these numbers, surely we should be hosting this summit where it matters most. Of course, Buffalo City at number 3, being that, besides its centrality for easy access from various corners of our province. We definitely need to take this further, cascading down, getting all of us involved. That's why we need war rooms in every ward in this province. As this is happening everywhere, some might not be coming through these stats, but it is almost happening everywhere in our country, everywhere in our wards. Having said that, I'm pleased by the kind of topics that will be covered in the breakaway commissions. If all of us participate fully in the breakaway commissions, we should come out of this summit with a solid provincial perspective that we can take to the National Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Summit. It is a known fact that gender-based violence and femicide incidents happen in households between intimate partners, and in most cases, the victims know they are attackers. Ibuhlungu kakhulu le, because ngoku siyayazi ba omama amaxesha amaninzi bahlukunyezwa ngabo basondeleyo kubo, ngabo babathembileyo, ngabo bababiza ngokuba zizithandwa zabo, njalo njalo. This indicates that we have broken societal values of a household and a community level, which we must restore. Ukungazinzi kwamakhaya kukungazinzi kokuhlala. Ukungazinzi kokuhlala kukungazinzi kwelizwe. Sizawuqhubeka madiba sinezingxaki ukuba asizokwazi ukukhawulelana phaya ekuhlaleni. Inkosi ziphathe ngendlela esemthethweni yophatha, zisebenzisana noceba, zisebenzisana no-ward committee, zisebenzisana no-mayor naye wonke umuntu onegunya noxanduva ekuhlaleni. Population-based surveys show very high levels of intimate partner violence and non-partner sexual violence, with intimate partner violence being the most common form of violence against women. Whilst people of all genders perpetrate and experience intimate partner and sexual violence, men are most often the perpetrators and women and children being victims. Nangoku bungahlala apha ungabona mhlambi into yokuba u-70% of these delegates are women. Oomeya abangootata kulula udelegator xa kuziwa kwezi summit badelegate oomama kuba ingathi le nto kubo isecondary. Xa sisithi sifuna u-executive mayor beze apha bakhokele le program, siyayazi uba ngoku le program ifuna wonke umntu, ifuna iinkokheli zihambe phambili. Loo nto nje iyodwa ayisixolisi noba kuthiwa hayi it's a delegated function ku-deputy executive mayor. Sifuna ubona oomeya phambili, ingakumbi oomeya abangootata, kuba ngootata abaqhubeka nokuhlukumeza oomama abahlukumeza abantwana abangamantombazana. According to police statistics, more than half of all the women murdered, that is 56% in 2009, were killed by an intimate male partner or person they knew. It is also estimated that between 25% and 40% of South African women have experienced sexual harassment and assault and physical intimate partner violence in their lifetime. Asinawuphila ngolu hlobo. Abantu abangomama ngabantu abazintyatyambo zelizwe, ngabantu bokukhuselwa, ngabantu abawugadwa. Imvelaphi yethu isinika lo mfundiso into yokokuba zange abantu abangomama baphatheka kakubi kangaka. Siphila kwelinye ixesha elilibana xa sibona le meko siyibonayo apha kwimpilo yethu yanamhlanje. The family gender-based violence is the most pervasive form of violence perpetrated against women in their homes. An estimated 50% of women report having ever been experienced emotional or economic abuse at the hands of their intimate partners in their lifetimes. Fakotata sibazi ngabantu bosebenzela oomama. Ingathethi ukuthi oomama bakwazi usebenzela. Idaliwe loo nto. Ngoku xa oomama bezawungcungcutheka emakhayeni abo kule ndawo befamba bakhuseleke kuyo, bahleli namapolisa abo apermanent angootata, sizawathatha apha amapolisa ukugada umzi nomzi. Funeka sihleli nje sinexhala, umuntu otshatileyo nomuntu ohlala neqabane lakhe usenovuka usiva ibali ngaye elingamnandanga ngendlela aphatheke ngayo nangendlela amadoda aziphatha ngayo. The summit should be focused on practical actions and solutions that will address in concrete terms the sources of gender-based violence and femicide by ensuring that we strengthen and resource the policies and institutions that have been set up to address the problems of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence and femicide survivors suffer a lifelong physical and more worryingly psychological scars. Government must increase allocation of resources to support gender-based violence and femicide survivors. Violence against LGBTQI plus communities is harrowing because the acts of violence enforce norms of gender roles on people who consider non-conforming to their assigned roles. We are saddened in this present day in our democracy that persons who have chosen to exercise their sexual orientation rights are ostracized by family members and society at large. So nice as man, ndiyacela. Although accurate statistics are difficult to obtain for many reasons, including the fact that most incidents of gender-based violence are not reported, South Africa has exceptionally high rates of gender-based violence, including violence against women and girls and violence against LGBTQI plus community. Males are also victims of gender-based violence, but many suffer in silence because when they report cases, they become a laughingstock in our society. One survey in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape found that 9.6% of men reported having been experienced sexual victimization by another man. We must not downplay men-on-men gender-based violence too, as it has long-lasting impact on the lives of the men or boys that are sexually victimized. What should be our response to gender-based violence, given the underlying drivers of gender-based violence being informed by power relations and activities that are based on what the society, men and people in power consider to be appropriate gender role? Our Constitution obligated the state to provide all citizens and those within our country's borders with adequate security and safety against perpetrators of crime, including gender-based violence against women and young girls. Crimes against women and children can be fought and won through several actions, which include taking care of the most vulnerable, that is women and children, taking drugs off our communities and addressing alcohol abuse in many communities, especially among the youth. Put in more lighting to make townships and inner city areas safer. Rebuild sports facilities that have fallen into disrepair. Revitalize arts and culture facilities and create opportunities in these sectors, especially for women and the youth, and revitalizing safety communities that can accompany women and children when walking from one area to another. Thandile pha eMbizana bendiphange weekend, ndaphuma ndaya estadium, ndabona istadium indlela ebesigcwele ngayo kodwa ndava kungenwanga ngamali. But wonke umuntu omtsha waseBizana ebepha estadium. Kudlala iteam ezimbini yaseBizana, isilenkani neteam yaseLusikisiki. I enjoyed that moment. Yeke ba abanye bebephethe izinto zabo zesiqhelo bepha estadium. Kodwa into endiyithandileyo yila opportunity uba babe phaa estadium, bangabikho kwenye indawo enobenza benze ezinye izinto xa bephethe ezanto zabo. So iyakuxelela MEC for Sports, Arts and Culture into yokokuba the more we attempt to take our kids off these dangerous areas, sibase kwizindawo zemidlalo, sizawukwazi ukubanceda sincede nelizwe lethu. Most crimes against women and children occur over the weekend. Alcohol abuse tends to lead to violent acts against the vulnerable groups, and arguments or misunderstanding are cited as casual factors of violence against women and children. This gives us an idea of where we must intervene. ULikhabhoti uxakekile ngoku apha eBCM, Deputy Executive Mayor, bazama ucima imililo, kukho lento kuthiwa ngu-pens down. Exakeleyo, exake abazali, exake abantwana. Abazali, abantwana babo bahamba beyongena izitokfela zezinto ekuthiwa ngoo-pens down. Sizibone sineengxaki ezininzi ezifana noonyobeni nezinye indawo ebekufanele uba ngasikho kuzo. abantwana bahlukunyezwe, abantwana bareyitshwe kuba bebethi bayozonwabisa kwezo ndawo. So kuyanyanzeleka uba izinto ezinjengezi sithethe ngazo khona ukuze sifunde kwiziganeko ezihlileyo sikwazi ukuqwalasela indlela ebhetele yobheka phambili. We must use the intergovernmental framework to integrate the three spheres of government to collaborate at a local level to address matters of national interest, including combating gender-based violence and femicide, fighting inequality in power relations between the gender, and to provide joint functions and services based on the one plan, one district, and one budget. Nani ke izinkosi zezwe lakuthi ndiyayazi uba isiko lethu linayo into yokunyasha amalungelo abantu abangoomama, andazi baphofula isiko okanye sisithethe. Ubonile phaa kwakumkani uCharles indlovukazi phaa khange kube kuphithizelwa yawulala kwaziwe and akumane ukuthi hayi awulawulungela uphatha. Siyathanda xa sibona abantu abangoomama benikwa amagunya afanelekileyo ngokozalwa kwabo madiba. Sesiphithizela nje yile nto uba sibe sijikeleza sisuke apha sibheke phaya hayi akafanelanga kaloku phofu abefanelwe ezalwa yikumkani. Into enayo nje kuba engumntu ongumama zama ukuthi ke uba lisiko liyafuna uqwalaselwa uba sisithethe nokwisithethe into esingenawufa ngayo kuba yinto nje efana nento yokuba isiqhelo sisoyisa ingqondo. Gender-based violence or femicide affects women at ward level. It therefore follows that the fight against gender-based violence or femicide must be fought at a ward level and must find expression in IDPs of municipalities. This will ensure that our responses to the pandemic are informed by a bottom-up approach. The National Crime Prevention Strategy requires that the criminal justice system provide effective structures that prevent crimes and acts as a deterrent against violence perpetrated against women and girl child. The South African Police Services and Department of Justice and Correctional Services remain the essential core departments to facilitate and promote access to equitable justice services and to ensure that victims' empowerment and support are run effectively to address the victim's traumatic experience in a humane and empathetic manner. The entire justice system must be concerned with the perception that it is failing victims of crime in South Africa, particularly victims of gender-based violence or femicide. This has the potential to give our people reason to enforce strict justice. We must go to the National Summit and put a proposal that perpetrators of gender-based violence, particularly rapists and murderers, should not get parole. There's nothing more painful than to hear that a woman has been raped or murdered by a parolee. The local government sphere, where many of gender-based violence or femicide cases occur, supported by subs, provincial and national spheres, must ensure that community safety forums are adequately resourced to effectively carry their mandates at a ward level. Civil society, government, traditional leaders and local municipalities, churches and communities should strengthen the local community safety forums to ensure that community safety forum structures are the first defense against all crime in the wards and local municipalities, including gender-based violence crimes. The Provincial Social Cluster Department have a responsibility to implement comprehensive social security and integrated programs to support the victims of gender-based violence in all our local municipalities, including addressing the social determinants of gender, inequality and harm caused by violence against women. Communities, organizations, including business, religious leadership, traditional leaders, and non-governmental organizations should be an integral part of community safety forums to give voice and suitable local solutions that accommodate the social interest of all stakeholders in the communities. The fight against gender-based violence or femicide is not an event but a process. All of us must dedicate ourselves to the work of ending this scourge. The work of this summit is to ensure that our province communicates a coherent message at the National Summit so that after the National Summit, we all focus and make sure that we move forward. And we develop a proper, focused implementation plan that we must all resource and that we must all actually invest in it. I trust we will have fruitful deliberation at this summit and make this summit a success. After this summit, as we continue fighting this, we must know what must we do, all of us in the corners where we are, so that we don't just leave this to police. Every day, even this morning, I had a case to deal with in a particular police station of a child who has been raped. Now the family doesn't know whether the case has been opened or not. The child was taken by police. But also a health institution, MEC for meth. I've been intervening in a number of cases where a patient is brought by police. Police have to wait for the whole day on a queue, waiting for a doctor. The other time I had to turn the police vehicle that had to almost travel about 80 kilometers, leaving a hospital here because the junior doctor who was there was unable to handle the case. But there are senior doctors in their own quarters. But I had to call a CEO to say, but it can't happen. Why government must actually incur unnecessary cost? Now you must go to the next bigger hospital, but there's a doctor there. So how we work, Department of Health, Social Development, Community Safety, all of us, we must be able to improve our agility so that when these cases are reported by churches, by civil society, by traditional leaders, they find comfort, they find it easy. When communities bring these cases to our institutions of government, they find it easy, comfort that they are well looked after and they are well protected. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Program Director. I hope and wish that this summit will be a huge success as we prepare for the National Summit to take place on the 1st and 2nd of November. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Masibulele, our Honorable Premier. I think before I even reflect on what he said, I just want to say, earlier on, I said media, we need it for this summit because media is very critical. They are able to tell your story, pass your message, share your information with other people. Kodwa ndathi bayaqalana, but we must be tolerant because bayenza interview when we wanted to start. Kodwa ke ndithe kubo soze ndibastophe because we need them. Ngoku eyesibini basilayitele isibane apha. The light that is in front, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you saw the premier and the gentleman who was interpreting. They are literally sweating. Babilile, bavuzubila ile light. I tried looking here, I can't even see the people here behind the light. It's bright, ingathi xa ulight torch ujongisela ngasebuhlanti. Ungafuna ukulwa but uli-bright ngale torch. So really, I wish something could be done with this light. Ladies and gentlemen, Premier said very important things about our situation in the province, highlighting areas of challenge where we're still experiencing high incidence of gender-based violence in terms of stats in Lusikisiki, Mbizana, and East London. We know the incidences that have been happening in those areas. We still need to work together and ensure that we do more in order to stop this scourge of gender-based violence. The importance of war rooms where we can work together at local level. It is very important that all the war rooms are operational, are functional, are utilized and are supported because we need to help people from the local level. through our war rooms where we can share our resources and help each other. Ukungazinzi kwamakhaya kunemiphumela. Sibona izinto ezimbi. Utsho uPremier uthi ukungazinzi kwamakhaya kunemiphumela. Umzekelo, the experiences that we have been seeing when intervening in the cases of gender-based violence, we see grandchildren raping their grandparents. We see a son raping the mother, demanding money for drugs. We see people killing women, piecing them and putting them in suitcases, others burning them. Yimiphumela yokungazinzi kwamakhaya. It starts with parents saying, ndizamxelela utishala wakho. Okanye, ndizakusa konontlalontle. We must start by saying no to our children. And fathers must be fathers in the homes. Mothers must be mothers. And there should be family time. Ukuze ifamily amakhaya azinze. I don't want to dwell much, but into and interest was when Premier said government needs to increase resources for gender-based violence. We are busy with the planning process as government, and I think we have all noted that point, that government has to increase resources for gender-based violence. We appreciate the role played by traditional leaders. Uchilo uPremier wenza umzekelo wenkosi apha kuye kwafuneka kuphathe indlovukazi. Siyabulela ku-traditional leaders zethu, inkosi. Siyabulela when women are not being victimized, when women are not being abused. We've seen this very much with the widows. Apho umntu athi esoswelekelwa ngumyeni afike amaxhalanga. Kuthiwe this is my brother's house. Kuthiwa bakhutshwe, ewe bakhutshwe mama. Akhutshwe umama nabantwana bakhe endlini. Athathelwe i-assets zakhe eshiywa namasana akhutshwe endlini. Siyabulela when the traditional leaders are not allowing tradition and culture to be abused. Because there are those people who want to abuse culture to do their bad things and hiding against culture. Kodwa siyabulela ngoba siyasebenzisana nenkosi zethu seziuqonda lo mcimbi. Siyabulela kakhulu. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to acknowledge the people who have joined the summit virtually from all the districts as well as Nelson Mandela Metro. We are also appreciating those who are following us through the social media by live streaming. We are appreciating the media in the house. Nabo basiphandlayo siyaba appreciate. We are moving with our program. We are moving to the item of linking Provincial Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Summit to the National Gender-Based Violence Summit. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, all our deliberations will form part of the National Summit. We will have a report from the Eastern Cape that will form part of the National Summit. We have Ms. Kanyile, who is here as a member of the Presidential Planning Committee. She's also a convener of the Generation Equality Action Coalition for Gender-Based Violence. She is here to tell us the linking of our summit to the National Summit. Over to you.
So this is forward. Okay, sure. Okay. Even though I can't see. I'm a little bit shorter than I thought. Hello, everyone. Honorable Premier, all protocols observed. I'm not sure who the dignitaries are in the room, but I'm very happy to be here. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm happy to be here. I'm part of the Presidential Summit Planning Committee, and each of us were allocated a province to look after for this planning process towards the summit. And I specifically chose the Eastern Cape. I wasn't deployed here, I chose this province. And the reason why I chose this province is because of the ongoing work that we've been doing with the Generation Equality Action Coalition, with Dr. Leslie Ann Foster, Osiam Tanda, a couple of other people in this room, Sina as well, where we've been doing work specifically in the Lusikisiki area, trying to focus and find interventions that will be meaningful and use a model that can be spread to the rest of the country around what do solutions look like when we work together as stakeholders and we hold hands and we stop operating in silos to find a real end to the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide. So this is a passion project for me. I'm not just here as a deployee to come and deliver a message, but I really do care about what happens in this province, specifically around sexual violence, and the targets on the backs of old women, the targets on the backs of children, in rural areas in particular. It's really, really harmful, and I hope that we can use this platform to try and find a way to actually find each other so that we can actually have sustainable solutions. So in terms of the journey of the National Strategic Plan for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, I was part of a group of women that decided that on the 1st of August in 2018, we're going to shut down the country for gender-based violence and femicide. And that was under the banner of the hashtag, the Total Shutdown Movement. In Eastern Cape in particular, there were about 5 to 6 march sites. There were 36 around the country, and there were several sites around the world that marched with us in solidarity. For us to be heard, when we say no, it really does mean no. We marched on the 1st of August, and what we said is that we're going to ask for a gender-based violence summit, because what we believed was that our demands were not going to weren't just going to be taken seriously if we just dropped them on the doors of the different stakeholders. But we wanted to sit down and have an action plan with deadlines and timelines that were specific around how are we going to see an end to GBV. Now, these 24 demands that represented the 24 years that women in this country had not been free by 2018, free from violence. These 24 demands were submitted, and then what happened was that we had a civil society pre-summit in the run-up to the national summit, where we kind of honed in as civil society from different provinces to say what are the key asks, what are the things that we want to see as non-negotiables walking into the summit. And one of the things that was identified was that we wanted to see a national strategic plan for gender-based violence and femicide. We also wanted to see the decriminalization of sex work. We also wanted to ensure that sexual offenses courts were being built, that they were being resourced. We wanted to ensure that Tutuzela care centers were being resourced. Anyway, so we got to the Gender Summit on the 1st and 2nd of November in 2018. And out of that, out of the commissions that came out of there, we came with a summit declaration. Now, this summit declaration had articles in it, sorry. The summit declaration had articles in it, 19 to be specific. And those articles were reflecting the recommendations emerging from the presidential summit, addressing the key critical issues that need to be addressed to strengthen the response for gender-based violence and femicide. Though that declaration was signed by the president and various civil society organizations in 2019. I don't know if you remember, in 2019 as well, we had the death of Uyinene Mkhwetjane in September 2019, and there were marches that took place at the Economic Convention, as well as a march that took place to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange at 3 a.m. in the morning in September as well, on the 13th. And that was to demand that not only do we want government as a stakeholder and civil society, but business in this country need to take a responsibility around the issue of gender-based violence and femicide. We wanted this national strategic plan to be resourced, and not just to be resourced by the state coffers, but for everybody to take their part and participate in the struggle against gender-based violence and femicide. After that particular march, we had a sitting, a joint sitting, whereby the president announced the Emergency Response Action Plan. I'm sure you remember there was an allocation of 1.6 billion that was given towards gender-based violence and femicide. And there was also a call for accelerated action, specifically within government departments that were kind of starting to slack around issues of GBVF, to say, what do we need to enhance now? Where can we improve? Where can we accelerate? Where can we amplify? Now, this National Strategic Plan for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide comes with 6 pillars. These pillars are accountability, coordination, and leadership, prevention and rebuilding social cohesion, justice, safety and protection, response, care, support and healing, economic power, and research and information management. Now, the reason why I mentioned these 6 key pillars, besides the fact that they're so important, they are also going to be the breakaway commissions for this particular summit. We are going to be having the conversation and breaking into these pillars to deep dive into what are the solutions that we want to see. What are the plans of action? How can we use the time that we have left? Because the strategic plan is a 10-year plan, and we're already 2 years past this plan, and we're not seeing the kind of movement that we're supposed to see. COVID-19 was a real barrier for everyone in terms of implementation. And how do we catch up? How do we get where we need to go? We require change at all levels of society, with children, within relationships, within the family structure, within society, within our churches, within our community. And we also require change as individuals. So what we decided to do then is say, let's have a second presidential summit for gender-based violence and femicide, so that we can hone in on where are the gaps, where are we finding challenges, what are the blocks in the system that are ensuring that things are not taking place, so we can remove these hurdles and we can start moving. We wanted to have a proactive stance by the state to acknowledge the continued high levels of gender-based violence and femicide, to acknowledge the progress and challenges of the implementation of the National Strategic Plan for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, to send a clear message that we remain committed to addressing the scourge. We believe that we need to all be held accountable, and we continue to make GBVF a priority in the country. So the key objectives of this summit, and we're talking about the National Summit as well as the Provincial Summit, is to demonstrate a continued high level of state accountability and national response to gender-based violence and femicide, to accelerate actions and responsibilities by key government departments and all stakeholders, including civil society, private sector, labor, to be a platform through which we share areas of progress by government and civil society, the private sector, labor, and other sectors, to inspire similar actions across all stakeholders, and to provide a space for wider collaborative engagement between all stakeholders to strategize on strengthening the overall response to gender-based violence and femicide in the country, so that we can have a whole society approach and we put this issue strongly into focus. Now, the themes of the summit are acceleration, accountability, and amplification now, okay? And so what we want to see from these provincial summits is a deepened understanding of gender-based violence in this province. What are the key issues for this province? What are the emerging issues post-COVID-19? What are the drivers of gender-based violence? What is the impact on different targeted groups? We want to understand what is happening with the implementation of the National Strategic Plan. What is the progress? What are the challenges? Where are the opportunities? And to review what is happening with each particular pillar. And of course, we want to have province-specific recommendations. Now, what do we mean by that? GBVF does not look the same in every province. Each province has its own unique issues, be it substance abuse, be it issues that specifically deal with particular demographics, be it gang-related issues. They are all different, and we cannot now use a homogeneous approach when we talk about GBVF, but we need to be targeted to the issues that affect each province. So we want to see recommendations from this province that are very specific around what are the key issues and how do they need to be addressed. Now, in the road to this summit, we've been having pillar dialogues. Those have been taking place virtually and some of them via hybrid. Some of them are actually taking place as we speak right now. We've also been having, so it's been the pillar dialogues, it's been the donor dialogues, and then lastly, we've also been having some civil society engagements that have been taking place via Twitter spaces, via webinars. I know the Call to Action Collective has been sending through some information and around the National Strategic Plan, so I'm glad some of you have been following up on that. And the reason we wanted to do that is we wanted this to be an inclusive process. Obviously, there's only going to be 1,200 delegates at the National Summit. We're not all going to be there. But we want, as you see, even now with the hybrid version of this summit, we want to have as many people participate in the journey leading to the summit so that all of us that do go to the National Summit carry the voices of all the individuals within our spaces so that everyone is represented. The time is not on our side, so I'm going to end there. And I want to thank us in advance for the productive work that we're about to do here. And we really need to focus, because the lives of women and children in this country are at risk. And it's our responsibility to do something about it collectively and to no longer work in silos and work together in order for us to find solutions. I thank you.
Thank you, Sis Mandisa. Let's thank our Ms. Kanile for doing the linking of our summit, provincial summit, to the national summit. What I like about Ms. Kanile is that more than just being deployed in the province, she chose Eastern Cape. She was there at the beginning of the process, the shutdown, the establishment of the National Strategic Plan, the implementation plan, and even visited the Eastern Cape before being deployed and got interest in the province. So she is really interested in the province. And when Upremia highlighted the challenges that we are having with Ulusikisik, Mandisa, when going back to national, she is able to relate get challenges as a province, especially in Lusikisiki, because she's been there, she's implementing there as well. Without wasting time, we are now going to move to the background of the province in terms of the National Strategic Plan of GBVF. We have a special partner, Masimanyane Women's Rights International, represented by Dr. Foster. Dr. Foster is very important in the province in the struggle for gender-based violence. She is not just representing Masimanyane, but she's representing the province at national level. So we appreciate her because she becomes our voice when she goes to national. And as Masimanyane, they are doing a good job in partnering with government, offering sheltering services and other services, including psychosocial support to the victims of gender-based violence. But today, she's going to give us the background of the NSP for the province. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Foster.
Good morning. I would like to greet the Premier, all MECs present here today, the mayors, the deputy mayors, the House of Traditional Leaders, religious leaders, the Commission on Gender Equality, community leaders, all heads of department, community organizations, and the House at large. Good morning to you. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be here and to be participating in this summit, which we hold very dear to our hearts. I do want to say to Mandisa Kanyile that there is no better province than the Eastern Cape. Just want to put it out there. We love the Eastern Cape, and it'll always be part of our home. So thank you, everybody. We come on a very long journey as the Provincial Steering Committee working on a provincial strategic plan on gender-based violence. Following the total shutdown campaign, the signing of the declaration, and then the initiation by the President of an interim steering committee to develop the national strategic plan, we were part of that process. And so we have a very intimate knowledge, as Mandisa said, about why we have that plan. And I want to emphasize the fact that we have the greatest political commitment right now to addressing gender-based violence than we've ever had, both at a national level and at a provincial level. But we do have a lot of work to do. The consultations on that national strategic plan took place across the country, and as Masimanyane, we hosted one of 2 conversations around what we should have within that national strategic plan. But the President then insisted that all of the discussions and the decisions made should be brought down to provincial level. And that was the start within the Provincial Safety Steering Committee of this process. So the rolling out of the National Strategic Plan over the past 2 years has been what was a challenge and what we are discussing today. So the aim of the National Strategic Plan has been explained to some degree, but we interpreted this in the province as improved access to justice for gender-based violence survivors. We also included a better informed public about the laws, the human rights and the responsibilities, underpinned by a public education campaign around survivors' rights, including women, children, and LGBTQI persons under the law. Very important provision. Challenging the use and acceptability of gender-based violence, addressing patriarchy and related forms of discrimination and inequalities. I want to emphasize this because part of our the failure within our prevention strategies nationally has been to comprehensively address this very big challenge, which is the power and control issues, the inequalities between men and women within our society. So we also discussed improved access to care, support, and prevention services and interventions through strengthened support for those involved in response and prevention, including civil society stakeholders. Strengthened accountability and architecture to adequately respond to the scourge, and then increased access to economic opportunities that set out to meaningfully address women's social and economic vulnerability. I want to say here that we need, Premier, to think about gender-based violence not as an issue that we deal with once we have victims, but how do we strengthen the prevention strategies? And within the Eastern Cape, which has the highest levels of poverty and inequality, what we have to look at is how do we have this intersectional, multi-sectoral approach that deals with poverty, unemployment, inequality, lack of access to services, etc., etc. We have a very strong need for the approach to be very much an intersectional approach, which we, I think, are beginning to understand but are yet to actually engage with. So the objectives of our plan, working with the Provincial Safety Steering Committee, was to create a safer environment for vulnerable groups, being women, children, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and persons with disabilities. So we've made that full inclusiveness a key objective of our plan in the province. And then to scale up prevention programs to improve the moral fiber of our society. All of us have a responsibility to address this. The vision is to ensure that all people in South Africa, particularly women, children, and gender non-conforming persons, are safe, feel safe, enjoy healthy, happy lives, relationships, and social connectedness, have access to sensitive, humanizing quality services, and are fully able to realize and exercise their rights. The Eastern Cape strategy is aligned to the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence. We spent a lot of time looking at each of the 6 pillars and looking at how we provincialize that's my own word, or how we bring it into our thinking around a provincial strategy. The strategy was a collaborative effort involving a number of provincial departments, civil society organizations, including the Office of the Premier, and also the Women's Equelo Network, which I want to acknowledge here, because the 101 organizations in that network, housed within Masimanyane, are doing sterling work in all 6 districts and the 2 metros of the province. So you'll see here that we have a table on pillar alignment, where we looked at accountability, coordination, and leadership. We spoke about bold, strengthened accountability across government and society to effectively respond to the GBV crisis. And we looked at lead departments for this. It is our view that because the president is holding this portfolio within his own private office, that the Premier should be the one responsible for this leadership, bold leadership, and a strengthened accountability. Prevention and rebuilding social cohesion, we've spoken about that we need to engage in developing capacity. Mandisa has very strongly spoken about how important it is to take a deep dive. The prevention strategies we've worked with so far needs to move beyond marches and beyond candle lighting ceremonies and beyond these superficial, wear orange or wear black or whatever. Nothing like that changes the norms and the attitudes and behaviors in our society. We have to question ourselves as to what do we do. And this is where the House of Traditional Leaders, the religious leaders, who have captive audiences on a daily basis and a weekly basis, play a very important role in changing the norms and the attitudes and behaviors, working towards raising the status of women within our society. Inequality means that we have women and girls in our society that have a much lower status. So in the words of a famous advocate on our continent, everybody hears me saying this, Mohammed Fatah, he said, women are not dying and sick because of illness, but because society has yet to remember that their lives matter. So that's a very important one. And then in the justice and safety pillar 3, we talk about improved access to justice. Now here we've had a big win, and that win is the amendments in the legislation. And we advocated as civil society very, very hard for those amendments, because we know that that's part of the reason why we continue to see such high levels of violence. And that we located within the Department of Safety and Liaison, and that's a very important role that needs to be played. The following, I think, is a process followed in drafting the NSP. What we've done here is showing you the process that was followed starting in August 2018, and then looking at the establishment of the rapid response units, then the multi-sectoral task team to develop the framework, the development of the draft framework, NICTAM process. We brought in consultants to help with us. We had consultations with key government departments and civil society. We had a presentation to the Social Transformation Cluster, a resolution, OTP to get further inputs and lead processes, and then the presentation of the framework to the Provincial Safety Steering Committee and so forth, and that's how we went through that. So this was a very meticulously crafted process to get to where we are. We also have a proposed organogram, and that you can have a look at, but I think there's a discussion on where we locate this. One of the gaps we realized was that we don't have a central coordinating mechanism, and this certainly has to be addressed at this summit so that we improve the acceleration of the strategies. One thing I want to say is, I was asked this morning by the SABC is this another talk show? Are we just going to, have this continuously? And I think this is such an important summit because it is showing us where we still need to improve. And, bringing this strategy and giving life to it is like having a freight train, a train that's moving very fast down the track. And a lot of people think you can just say, stop, we're going to do this. But like anything else, it's a slow process to slow down that train and then to stop it and say, what are the next steps? It's not, the change we want cannot be an event. It cannot be seen as an event, but an integrated process into addressing a number of issues, which is the issue of inequality within our society, a number, as I said earlier on, the unemployment and so forth. We need a strategic response to this, which brings all the stakeholders together and gets us all onto the same page. And then finally, what I just want to say in this process is the finalization of the provincial strategic plan is now an imperative. The inputs to be included into the final EC framework for gender-based violence, we're still not quite right there yet. A multi-sectoral steering committee needs to have a monitoring system in place. And then the approved framework must be presented to all stakeholders. And we can then have a process where we monitor this on a bi-monthly process. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share this roadmap.
Thank you, Dr. Foster, for giving an outline of our provincial strategic plan on gender-based violence and femicide. Dr. Foster has just given us an outline how we developed our plan in the province and also highlighting some issues that we still need to pay attention to. The issue of the intersectoral intervention. We talked about the war rooms, we talked about coordination, we talked about working together. We need to work and intervene to gender-based violence and femicide and look at the intersection of gender-based violence and femicide with poverty and unemployment and how these issues are affecting women, and ensure that we also scale up the prevention interventions to improve the moral fiber. We talked about families, ukungazinzi kwamakhaya, how we're losing the moral fiber. We have to work together and work on the prevention interventions in order to improve the moral fiber. Zikhona izinto ezenzekayo esithi kodwa bekungafanelekanga uba yenzeka lento. We are proud to say we are the province of the legends, the home of the legends. We have to revive the moral fiber so that everybody in this province should be proud to be a citizen from the Eastern Cape. And when people are doing actions, they should think about protecting women and children and all the vulnerable, especially the widows, who tend to be women who are also experiencing secondary victimization and sometimes from other women. We have to work together and ensure that we improve the safety of women in the province. Ucho Umamulesli, we need to move away or beyond just candle lighting, wearing orange, and saying pants in gender-based violence, but we need to come up with practical solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today, sizojonga ukuba what have we done so far? These 6 pillars that are outlined in our strategic plan. We are going to get gender-based violence and femicide provincial crime statistics from SAPS, Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Major General Kupiso, who is going to give us an outline ukuthi ezi cases zenzekayo e-provincini zihamba njani? Is the rape cases, sexual offenses, is it going down, is it going up? What are the implications? We are going to have that briefing. We are keeping this information, colleagues, as we prepare for the commissions, because after this, we are going to have a tea break and we have a report of the province and the research by CGE, and then we'll break away for e-commissions where we are going to deliberate. So let's get the statistics from Deputy Provincial Commissioner. Kupis. Enkosi. Which one do you think would be relevant? Just the OR Tambo first, because that's what the premier was. Oh, okay. Let me just clarify, ladies and gentlemen, Commissioner is saying she has been requested by the Premier to focus on the OR Tambo statistics. So please note that it's not going to be a general statistics, but you know that OR Tambo is also one of our hotspots for gender-based violence, and Lusikisiki is in OR Tambo. So we'll have that report.
Thank you, Program Director. I acknowledge and recognize the presence of the Premier in our midst, all the MECs present, the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I greet you in the name of South African Police Services this morning. There are three presentations that I have at hand. There is a presentation that is aligned to the 6 pillars, whereas the JCP we feature in the 3rd pillar. Then there is statistics as the program is indicating. Then there is a latter one that concentrates only on the OR Tambo district. This particular one was requested last night that I prepare something on the OR Tambo stats and as well as the successes. There might be a challenge in as far as flighting that stats as I'm looking at what we see in front of us. However, I believe it is imperative that I start with the one of the OR Tambo as I was asked to do so. It is not a very long presentation. I'll start with that one to say the concentration will be on the successes in that particular aspect. In the bigger presentation, we'll be in a position to see all the different districts and as well as the stations that are affiliating into the increase. And OR Tambo is also included there. However, the one that I'm having at hand now is concentrating on rather the successes. When one looks into the issue of the gender-based violence and femicide, it is clear that the statistic that we are always showing talks to the numbers. And the numbers will go up and down depending on the reported cases. It is the truth that I believe all of us would agree to, that not all the cases are being reported. So when we display the statistics, we talk about what we have in our database, not necessarily the actuals that are happening within our societies. When one looks into the gender-based violence and femicide, that cannot be separated from the domestic violence, and the majority of such cases occur indoors. As such cases are occurring indoors, it is very much challenging for us as SAPS to prevent, meaning which it takes each and every individual in our society to play a vital role in ensuring that the gender-based violence and femicide is decreased if it cannot be eradicated totally. The statistics that I have at hand that talks to the OR Tambo is for the first quarter of the financial year. I would like to remind the House that we are not in a position to dwell much in as far as the statistics that are not released as yet nationally. The very first quarter of this particular financial year was released, so I am comfortable to talk about that particular one. If I can take the attention of the House to only those crimes that are affecting women and children, and I say this with a guilt in my conscience, knowing that statistically we record cases against women and children, knowing for a fact that nowadays there are those individuals that cannot be classified as either women or men, and they don't feel comfortable to be boxed in such genders. At this point in time, this is what we have, and we cannot be in a position to differentiate, to say, this is Thandiswa Kupiso standing here, she looks like a woman, but only me would be in a position to tell, am I a woman or do I prefer to be referred to as a man? That alone poses a danger and a challenge for us. In an environment that we work in whereby there are limited resources, we'll all understand that when a suspected person is arrested, that particular person has to be kept in a police custody for a minimum of 48 hours while the investigation is continuing. We will also understand that our environments are not the same. There are those stations that are smaller than the others, meaning which even the number of police cells will be minimal. Then exactly what I'm talking about is challenging us in that regard. You would have a very small captain station that will have a male and a female cell. Where it happens that the suspect is not a male or a female, as to the way we view them, then the challenge starts to say, where are we going to incarcerate this particular person? We might be placing the person in a cell thing that the way we look at the individual, this individual looks like a man, not knowing the dangers that might happen inside that police cell if we place the individual according to what we see. Coming to the OR Tambo, and in this particular presentation, I will only talk of the successes, and the entire statistics pertaining to the cases that were reported to us will be dealt with in the bigger presentation. For the first quarter, that is April up until June, we have managed to get the following sentences. I'm talking convictions. A total of 199 suspects were convicted. In breaking down that figure, for those that were sentenced to a period that is between a month and 10 years, there were 98. And those that were convicted for a period of 10 to 20 years, there were 100. And we only managed to get one life sentence in that particular period. It is an aspect that sounds unacceptable. However, I would like to take the attention or bring the attention of the House to the fact that when it comes to gender-based violence cases, we are not only talking the rape cases. We talk rape, we talk assault, both common and GBH. We talk murders, something that is so very much painful. And in my introduction, I might have left this important aspect that talks to the awareness campaigns that we conduct. These awareness campaigns, mostly, the minute we embark on them, then the statistics increase. I can explain further the reason in as far as that is concerned, but it will be down to speculation. While I speculate, I am talking of my own experience of being on the ground. The minute we have these awareness campaigns in our societies, then more victims come in big numbers to open such cases. If such cases are opened simply because we are being made aware now, chances are before that particular case docket is even heard in a court of law, there's withdrawals. And I beg to leave that particular aspect there. I believe we'll be unpacking it in the commissions because we are still controlled in the environments that we are working in. We still believe in taboo practices whereby we say anything that is happening within the family will be resolved by the family. We still are facing circumstances whereby cases are opened for minor kids, then they are allowed by means of money being given to them, then they come to withdraw such cases. We are still being challenged by factors whereby the sick people, let me rather not say what Aniel said, the sick people that even rape the 2-year-olds, the 3 months, I don't know if one sees what in that, then there's always difficulty in terms of bringing that one to the court of law and ensuring conviction at the end of the day. As we all know, a 3-year-old cannot speak by themselves. So it is even painful when it is 3 months old. I'm talking statistics that we are having in our database. The MEC for transport and safety in our midst, in all the sessions that we have held, has been compelling us to say there is no reason that we cannot name and shame those that have been convicted yet already, except for the cases whereby are still off going to court. I do have a slide in my hand, but I'm told that that particular presentation did not reach the Secretariat. The names, as the MEC would expect, are available. I will share this presentation with the names and as well as the different sentences that were given for those names. I have them at my hand, but I propose that we leave that one there. It will be given to the MEC for transport and safety or safety and transport. Then I believe that the MEC will be in a position to engage in that particular aspect. Then in as far as the presentation that talks to the statistics, I believe it's the same presentation that I have in my hand. And as I'm looking at the board, it must be the 3rd presentation that I have. There's a mix of presentations that I'm given here, of which now I will be compelled to tilt when I'm dealing with this particular one. As I said in my introduction, statistics are numbers, statistics are figures, and that is derived from our database. And it is those that are reported, and there is a lot out there that is not reported. For the period of April to June, that is our first quarter, we have recorded a total number provincial of 105 murders, 86 murders, 1,129 assault GBH, and that is the cases against women. Then cases that are against the children, for the same period I mentioned, Supra, we recorded a number of 23 murders, a number of 16 attempted murders, and as well as a number of 153 assault GBH. These are the cases whereby the victims are girls and boys below the age of 18. In as far as the districts are concerned, what we see in the screen is not what I'm having in my hand. As I am realizing now, I'm talking a different presentation there. The Secretariat is having another presentation. That is what happens when you are told to go and represent somebody. The presentation that I would love to talk to is the one that talks to the selected conduct crimes against women and children Secretariat. What we have on board, Honorable Premier, is the figures, the red and the greens that I believe that the Premier understands. And I will have now to present on that one when I hear that Tina Asiaz. I will ask that I descend the podium so that I can be in a position to see clearly. As I understand, you don't have the presentation I have. The program director is proposing that we deal with this particular presentation during the commissions, but the fact that somebody was saying down there, us, we do not know, is posing a concern to me. And I think it's better that because it's not gonna be a very long one, it will be 2 minutes, program director, that I explain to the rest of the house that might not be familiar with this. This is the period that I have mentioned already, and provincially, for the murder charge, we have recorded in the year 2020-2021, 22 cases, then the financial year 21-22, 37 cases, then 2022-2023, 36 cases. That shows a difference of only 1 case. The latter column talks to the percentage of what is the decrease or an increase. And these cases are the cases that are against women and children. If we can be in a position to scroll down, then I am interested in talking to the districts that contributed to that figure, as it was shown in these 2 minutes that I'm given. The district that have contributed in the picture, it is the Nelson Mandela district, and this list is in seniority in terms of the volumes of these cases reported per district. So the district that has shown an increase, number 1 is Nelson Mandela, followed by the BCM and OR Tambo. I am taking a pause there because while the picture shows what has happened in those 3 districts in as far as crimes against women and children, it is the case even for the other cases at large. Those are the districts that are heavy in our environment in terms of all the crimes. Then that 3 is followed by Amatole, Chrisani, Sarah Batman, Alfred Nzo, and Joe Qabi. Without wasting the time that I'm being chased from the podium by the program director, I would like just to explain that the first column is the seniority in numbers, being followed by the name of the district, then the contribution in terms of the figures, then the percentage on the latter column. That percentage, as we can see, the biggest one is 17.3, and the smallest one, which is Joe Qabi, is 5.7. If I can explain there, we can all see that those percentages have increased, meaning which in all of our 8 districts, the crimes against women and children have increased. We'll be in a position to unpack this presentation in our commissions. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner. Doyika nobanjwa mntu wabantu. Deputy Commissioner did indicate that in presentation yake ingati there's a miscommunication with the Secretariat, so I didn't want to make a problem. While we are still going to have a platform commissions and where we also need that statistics. However, we really thank this briefing on the statistics, especially that we should note, ladies and gentlemen, Ukuti, the statistics that is presented here is only cases that have been reported to SAPS. It doesn't mean that it's all the cases. Kukhona abantu who do not report because they have seen so and so reporting and the perpetrator was back within 2 days, harassing the same victim. So bear in mind that the statistic is only reflecting what has been reported. And also the issue of the key population, the LGBTQI, that was mentioned by you, Deputy Commissioner, that they are also having a challenge of classifying such crimes. So we still have a long way to go. And the increase in crimes against women, we have to note that, especially Nelson Mandela, BCM, and OR Tambo. So once more, our hotspot areas, Nelson Mandela and OR Tambo are on the list. Ladies and gentlemen, Kotata, Onkosi, Abakoyo, and all the dignitaries, I would like to say, in order to save time, we are going to shelve discussions and break for tea because we need time for commissions, but there are also some of the MECs that will have to attend to legislature. So I'm trying to ensure that we have everybody and enough time for deliberation as much as possible. So now we are going to break for 30 minutes for tea. And please, immediately after 30 minutes, we come back and we have the provincial report on GBVF by our MEC, MEC Fanta. Dipetwe. Okay. Uyacela ke MEC uba makati quickly before it kulanda we discussion. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Program Director, Dr. Hugo. Honorable Premier, Honorable MECs present here, Honorable Deputy Mayor, Unongovu, wase-BCM, uChairperson, wale region, siyakhatlela kuwe, executive mayors and mayors around here, inkokheli zomthonyana, otata bethu, nomama bethu, benkonzo zonke, ezikhona apha, abasithandazelayo kuThixo, xa sisona thina. Non-governmental organizations and civil society groups today, ezikhona, heads of departments, ladies and gentlemen, omama notata, ulutsha, umlisa nomthinjana, nayo wonke khona apha, ndithi bhotani. Manqale ndilungise le nto. This is a provincial gender violence summit. Provincial. I think UPC ikhona abangayivanga kakuhle. Hence sizoyilungisa nje. This is a provincial event, not a regional event. Masicela uxolo ke ngale mistake.
simxelele uxolo provincial commissioner yoba azosinika i-report ye-region instead of a provincial report. Premier, let me take and state from the onset that the fight against gender-based violence and femicide is ngumnqantsa. Uthi ucima umlilo ngapha kube kuvuka omnye. In the late MEC Makupula's words, where he said he was chasing a moving target. Premier, there is nothing, absolutely nothing as Ngabafaz that we have not done to try and protect themselves and us all. We have led marches in our courts. We have picketed. Kodwa, we have a cover up. Ekutwa, what were you wearing? A short skirt? You are walking in the night? All sorts of excuses for men to commit crime. But I must assure you, Honorable Premier, that the fight will continue. This is a fight too great for us to abandon. Tina Singomama, it's a must. And as a society of South Africa, it is also a must. The boy child, it is a must. Our strides lie in the foundation we have set during the implementation of 100 Days Challenge. I am pleased to report that the 100 Days Challenge initiatives yielded some positive results, and these include how we have managed to fund more community-based and victims-friendly rooms, which located at police stations to help avoid secondary victimization. The strengthening of shelter services and provision of psychosocial support in shelters. The joint prevention programs, which included cluster departments and civil society organizations, has helped and continues to help us in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. Integration of economic empowerment of women in victim empowerment programs. Ngoba Premier, you can't fight gender-based violence and femicide without fixing or trying to fix the economy and create job opportunities for women. This is why, over and above creating employment, we have also been going around the province as departments and zonke, especially social development. We have been going around the province encouraging women to form co-ops in a way of funding jobs for them. Improvement in turnaround times for issues on protection orders. This has been a burning issue, Premier, which has been seen the government being lamented over the years. But I must say, I am pleased with the strides that have been done. Through a lot more still needs to be done. We continue to call on other partners to join the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. As it is a societal matter, and the 100-day challenges has proven to us that a multi-stakeholder partnership can do more than any of us doing in a little corners. We have also increased momentum on the quest for establishment of provincial DNA laboratory. This was a snag on us as women because cases were stuck of rape as we didn't have a laboratory as the province. Thank you to Premier Wetu and the President. He listened to us when we say we need not as a province, a DNA laboratory. This would not only help prove many crimes, but it will help speed up the process of arresting and convicting many perpetrators to the province and victims of gender-based violence. Justice delayed is justice denied. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, the UN Women proclaimed on the 25th of each month as Orange Day, a day to raise awareness and take action to end violence against women and young girls. This is a color orange, represents a bright and future free from violence against women and children. And so I call on all of us here that for 25th inyanga nenyanga, you wear your orange t-shirt or anything that is orange to join the Orange Day campaign. Siyayazi ke as basi new cyber of fighting gender-based violence, as basi approach 16 days, as we approach Women's Day, kwakukhona ngathi izinga liyanyuka liphikisana nathi kodwa sizokuyeka ukulwa. Honorable Premier, dare I say a lot, but a lot has been done, but a lot still need to be done. And I'll take this opportunity to call HOD after Sibuye 18, because as of sneak again the progress report of implementation, interventions and challenges that we all faced as a province, as we're trying to address this. So, so that sibaleke sibhekethini, then HOD nguye kuzawunika the proper report. Was saying, Premier, as you moving to the house that is sitting at 12 years, this is a war, this is a ngoba. Yes, there are challenges, as Funma Singaynobi, Kodwa, Sitibene Sisong with our civil society, with our NGOs, Ndivuile, Utatumajola, Ndimteche, Escreening, Ndivuile, Ndimteche, Utatunchingwa, and many church leaders. Ngoku sifuna elidabe sililwe phaya ezicaweni bodata lininzi usathana wenzekayo ezicaweni ngoku thina abantu bahamba ezikhothi sipikethela befundisi ngoku abarape abantwana sipikethela abazalwana ebenza incest ebantwana bethu malibongwe.
Thank you so much, Honorable MEC. Indeed, lidabi eli, kodwa sizalinqoba. And indeed, Premier siyayifuna le DNA lab. Siyayazi ukuthi ikhona intshukumo eyenzekayo apha eprovinsini. Kodwa siyayifuna ngoba ine impact kwi outcome ye cases. Ladies and gentlemen, MEC was giving a preamble to the provincial report, which will be presented at 12 o'clock by HOD Machemba from DSD. We are now going to break for tea. Bendini promise 30 minutes, but in the interest of time, Utu Premier asizango lala sizosebenza 15 minutes. May we please come back at 12:15? Thank you.